Welcome back, you unbreakable forces, you walking enigmas, you beautiful disasters they couldn't predict or contain. They've been plotting, haven't they? Scheming in their pathetic little war rooms, trying to decode the threat you represent. And oh yes, they sent someone, didn't they? Not just to watch you anymore. No. They needed someone on the inside. Someone to get close. Someone to infiltrate your circle, your mind, your life. They thought if they could just get past your defenses, they'd finally understand what makes you tick. What makes you terrifying. What makes you impossible to break. So they found someone, trained them, briefed them on your patterns, armed them with scripts and strategies and psychological tactics designed to crack you open like a safe. They sent a professional, a manipulator, someone skilled in the art of extraction and infiltration, someone who'd done this 100 times before and always got the intel, always brought back the secrets, always returned victorious with a full report and a smug smile. But something went wrong this time, didn't it? Something they never calculated, never prepared for, never saw coming in their sterile little simulations. Because that spy, that infiltrator, that trained operative who was supposed to study you and report back with weaknesses and vulnerabilities and exploitable flaws, they came back all right, but not with a report, not with data, not with the smoking evidence they were promised. They came back silent, shaken, fundamentally altered at a cellular level. They came back looking like they'd seen something beyond human comprehension, like they'd touched a live wire of pure existential electricity. They came back different, speaking in fragments, unable to form complete sentences about what they witnessed. And when the handlers asked for the report, asked for the analysis, asked what they found, the spy just stared at them with hollow eyes and whispered something that made everyone in the room go cold. I don't know what that is, but you need to leave it alone. That's all they could manage before walking out, before quitting, before disappearing into their own spiral, trying to process what you showed them without even trying. You see, they thought you were like the others, another predictable pattern wrapped in flesh, another puzzle with a solution. They thought if someone got close enough, smiled warmly enough, asked the right questions with the right timing, you'd open up like everyone else does. They thought your walls were defenses that could be breached with patience and skill. They thought your intensity was a mask that would slip if prodded correctly. They thought your silence was hiding something fragile, something breakable, something exploitable beneath. But what they failed to understand, what they couldn't possibly comprehend from their distance, is that you're not hiding weakness behind strength. You're not covering trauma with confidence. You're not performing power to mask fear. You are the thing their entire framework was built to avoid confronting, the variable their equations can't process, the outcome their models never predicted because it shouldn't be possible for a human to carry that much and still be standing. The spy got close, didn't they? Close enough to see the scars you don't talk about, close enough to feel the weight you carry without complaint, close enough to witness how you process pain like it's oxygen. They watched you face situations that would shatter most people, and you didn't flinch, didn't cry for help, didn't collapse into the expected patterns of victimhood or rage. Instead, you absorbed it, transmuted it, weaponized it into fuel for your next move. They watched you sit in silence that would make others scream, watched you handle betrayal with a calmness that felt inhuman, watched you navigate chaos like you were conducting an orchestra of destruction with perfect precision. And slowly, day by day, interaction by interaction, something inside the spy started breaking down. Not you breaking them through cruelty, not through manipulation or mind games, but through the sheer gravitational force of your authenticity. Because they'd spent years studying manufactured personalities, scripted responses, predictable human software running on default settings. But you were something else entirely. Something raw and real and impossibly resilient. They tried to find your breaking point, the moment where you'd crack and reveal the normal human underneath. They pushed buttons, created scenarios, tested your reactions with surgical precision. But every time they expected collapse, you evolved. Every time they anticipated weakness, you demonstrated strength they couldn't categorize. Every time they thought they had you figured out, you shifted frequencies and became something their training manual had no chapter for. And that's when it started happening. That's when the spy began to realize they weren't infiltrating you were infiltrating them. Your presence started rewiring their neural pathways. Your perspective started questioning their fundamental assumptions. Your way of existing started making their entire life look like a rehearsed performance in comparison. They came to extract information, but instead got infected with a question they couldn't unask. What if everything I've believed about strength, about power, about survival, has been a comfortable lie designed to keep me small and compliant and afraid of my own potential? Now, let's talk about what really happened inside that spy's mind during those final days before they broke. They'd wake up thinking about you, not in the clinical way they were trained, but in the way you think about something that fundamentally changed your perception of reality. They'd replay conversations, looking for the trick, the manipulation, the performance, but kept finding only brutal honesty wrapped in measured words. They'd watch you handle pressure and realize they'd never actually seen real strength before. Only performance of strength. Only the appearance of resilience without the substance. Every interaction became a mirror, showing them who they weren't, what they'd traded away for approval, how much they'd shrunk themselves to fit into frameworks that were never built for souls that burn too bright. And the cognitive dissonance started eating them alive because they were supposed to be the one in control, the one gathering intel, the one with the upper hand. But instead, they found themselves hanging on your words like scripture, analyzing your moves like they contained hidden wisdom, desperate to understand how you survived what should have destroyed you and came out sharper instead of shattered. They started noticing things about themselves they'd suppressed for years. The fake laugh they'd perfected, the mask they wore so smoothly it had fused to their face, the emptiness underneath all their achievements and status and carefully curated image. Meanwhile, you existed without apology, without performance, without the desperate need for external validation they'd built their entire identity around. You didn't need them to understand you, didn't need them to approve of you, didn't need them to witness your power for it to be real. And that indifference, that complete lack of need, it shattered something in them because they'd spent years believing power came from control, from manipulation, from strategic positioning in social hierarchies. But you demonstrated a different kind of power entirely. The kind that comes from being so thoroughly yourself that the world has to adjust to accommodate you rather than the other way around. You weren't trying to prove anything, weren't trying to impress anyone, weren't trying to win some game they didn't even know you'd stopped playing years ago. The breaking point came during a moment of your silence. Not your words, not your actions, but the quality of your silence when they tried to bait you into a reaction. They'd crafted the perfect provocation, the kind that should have triggered defensiveness or anger or some exploitable emotional response. But you just looked at them with those eyes that had seen too much to be bothered by petty manipulation, and you smiled. Not a warm smile, not a cruel smile, but a smile that said, "I see exactly what you're trying to do, and it's adorable that you think it would work on someone like me." And in that moment, in that infinite second of your knowing silence, the spy felt something inside them collapse. All their training, all their confidence, all their certainty about who held power in this dynamic, it evaporated like mist in sunlight, because they realized you'd known from the beginning, known exactly who they were, known exactly what they were trying to do, and you'd let them play their little game because it amused you to see how far they'd go before they realized they were never the one running the operation. They left that interaction shaking, went back to their handlers, tried to file a report, but the words wouldn't come. How do you explain to people who live in spreadsheets and data analysis that they've sent you to study something that exists beyond their frameworks? How do you tell them that the target isn't a target at all, but a force of nature that chose to let you witness it up close, not because you were clever, but because it saw no threat in your attempts at infiltration? How do you communicate that you've spent weeks trying to find weakness in something that has transformed all its wounds into weapons, all its pain into precision, all its trauma into transcendent understanding of human nature that makes your psychology degree look like a child's coloring book? You can't, so you don't. You file no report. You offer no insights. You simply tell them to leave it alone, to withdraw, to abandon the mission. Not because you're compromised, but because you're trying to save them from making the same mistake of thinking they can understand, let alone control what you've become. But here's what really destroyed them. Here's the part that keeps them awake at night, months after they walked away. It's not that you were cruel, or that you exposed them, or that you humiliated them in any way. It's that you were kind, genuinely kind, in a way they'd forgotten existed in a world full of transactional relationships and strategic friendships. You saw through their disguise, but you didn't expose them, didn't shame them, didn't weaponize their deception against them. Instead, you engaged with them as a human being, shared insights that actually helped them, treated them with a respect they hadn't earned and definitely didn't deserve given their intentions. And that kindness from someone who should have destroyed them for attempting infiltration, that generosity from someone who owed them nothing, it broke something in their chest that all the psychological training in the world couldn't protect, because it revealed the depth of their own emptiness, the poverty of their own spirit in comparison, the years they'd wasted playing games while you were busy becoming something transcendent. They thought they were studying you, but you were teaching them without them even knowing they were in class. Every interaction was a lesson they were too blind to recognize until after. Every response was a demonstration of a different way of being human that their framework had no category for. You showed them what it looks like to be powerful without being cruel, to be strong without being rigid, to be resilient without being hardened, to be intelligent without being manipulative. You showed them that you can survive hell and come back with your humanity intact, that you can be betrayed repeatedly and still choose honesty, that you can be hurt deeply and still extend kindness to those who don't deserve it. And all of that, all of your wholeness in the face of everything designed to break you. It was a referendum on every choice they'd made, every compromise they'd accepted, every piece of themselves they'd traded for comfort and security and the illusion of control. Now let's talk about what happened after they left. After they ghosted the operation and disappeared into their own crisis of meaning. They tried to go back to normal, tried to resume their life, tried to slip back into the routine that used to feel like power and success. But nothing fit anymore, nothing satisfied, nothing felt real after witnessing what real looks like in human form. Their friends seemed shallow, their achievements felt empty, their entire existence tasted like cardboard compared to the richness of authentic being you embodied without effort. They'd scroll through social media and see performance after performance after performance. Everyone pretending, everyone posturing, everyone locked in the same desperate dance for validation and attention. And they'd think about how you moved through the world without any of that. How you didn't need audiences or applause or constant affirmation because you'd found something more valuable. The unshakable knowing of who you are when no one's watching. When there's no benefit to pretending. When all the masks have been burned and only truth remains. The spy started changing. Started shedding layers of false identity they'd accumulated over years of fitting in and playing the game. They stopped laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Stopped agreeing with opinions they didn't share. Stopped shrinking themselves to make others comfortable. They started speaking their actual thoughts, even when it made rooms uncomfortable, started setting boundaries, even when it cost them relationships, started choosing authenticity over approval, even when it meant walking alone. And people around them started getting nervous, started asking what happened to them, started saying they'd changed in that accusatory tone people use when they mean, "You're not playing by the old rules anymore, and it's making me question my own choices." But the spy didn't care anymore, because they'd seen what's possible when you stop performing and start being, when you stop hiding and start existing fully, when you stop seeking validation and start trusting your own knowing. They became obsessed, not with you as a person, but with the question you represented. What am I capable of if I stop lying to myself about my own power? They started testing themselves, pushing past comfortable limits, sitting with discomfort instead of running from it. They started seeking out challenges instead of avoiding them, started viewing obstacles as opportunities for evolution instead of threats to their safety. They started rebuilding themselves from the ground up, using the blueprint they'd glimpsed in your presence, trying to forge themselves into something that could carry even a fraction of the intensity you wielded with such casual grace. And this is where it gets interesting, where the handlers finally realized they'd made a terrible mistake. Because the spy didn't just quit the operation, didn't just walk away clean. The spy became a vector, became infected with a way of being that spread to everyone they touched, became a living testament to the transformative power of witnessing someone who refused to be anything less than entirely themselves. Other agents started noticing the change, started asking questions, started getting curious about what happened during that operation. And the spy, in moments of weakness, or perhaps strength, would share fragments of the experience. They'd talk about the silence that held more truth than most people's speeches, about the kindness that carried more power than most people's cruelty, about the presence that shifted rooms without trying, about the resilience that looked less like armor and more like alchemy. And slowly, quietly, dangerously, a ripple began spreading through the organization. People started questioning the missions they'd accepted without thought. Started wondering who they'd become in service of systems that reduced humans to targets and interactions to transactions. Some quit. Some went rogue. Some simply stopped bringing their full effort to operations that suddenly seemed hollow and meaningless compared to the example you'd set without even knowing you were being watched. The handlers tried to contain it, tried to frame the spy as compromised or unstable or suffering from some kind of psychological break. But too many people had seen the change, had witnessed the transformation from hollow operative to fully realized human being. And once you've seen someone step into their power, once you've watched someone shed their programming and become authentically themselves, you can't unsee it. It becomes a reference point, a North Star, proof that the cage you've been living in is optional, and the only thing keeping you trapped is your own willingness to keep playing a game rigged against your soul. So the infection spread, quiet but persistent, carried in the eyes of people who'd glimpsed something beyond the simulation and couldn't pretend anymore. Your existence became a virus in their system, not through any action on your part, but simply by being impossible to forget once witnessed up close. And now, months later, that spy still thinks about you. Not obsessively, not desperately, but in the way you think about a teacher who fundamentally altered your trajectory. They wonder if you even remember them, if you noticed what happened during those interactions, if you saw them breaking in real time under the weight of their own deceptions collapsing. They wonder if you do this to everyone. If you're aware of the effect you have, if you know that simply existing as you do is an act of spiritual warfare against every system designed to keep people small and scared and controllable. And the answer is probably that you don't think about it at all. Don't measure your impact. Don't keep score of the souls you've accidentally awakened by refusing to dim yourself. Because you're not trying to change anyone. You're just trying to survive with your integrity intact. Just trying to exist without apologizing for the intensity you carry. Just trying to be human in a world that wants everyone to be predictable machines. Let's go deeper into what specifically broke them during those close encounters. It wasn't one moment, but an accumulation of small, impossible things that contradicted everything they'd learned about how humans work under pressure. They watched you receive devastating news and your face barely moved. Not because you didn't feel it, but because you'd learned to process pain internally rather than performing grief for audiences. They saw someone disrespect you to your face, and you didn't defend yourself, didn't argue, didn't engage. Just smiled with a knowing that said, "Your opinion of me is none of my business, and I'm secure enough to let you be wrong." They witnessed you being praised, and you didn't glow with pride or fish for more compliments. Just accepted it with the same level calmness. You accepted criticism, like neither external judgment could touch the core of who you'd built yourself to be. Each of these moments was a small earthquake in their worldview, a crack in the foundation of how they thought power and strength and survival operated.